Part 41. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 403. Unknowingly, Han Qian owed Tu Xiao a favor. After drinking and eating, Han Qian could not drive under the influence because this guy didn't have a driver's license yet. The other guys all had drivers, and Tong Yao had to take Han Qian to take a taxi. After getting in the car, Tong Yao told the driver to go to Taiwa restaurant, and Han Qian frowned and said doubtfully, "You want to sleep with me?" Tong Yao glared at Han Qian and gritted his teeth. "Sleep with your uncle? I'm going to send some money to my cousin and chat with her by the way. In order to avoid being misunderstood when I send you home, remember, we haven't met today. So you should stay in the hotel tonight." At this moment, Han Qian's head was in a mess, and he was already drunk with alcohol. He leaned on Tong Yao's shoulder and closed his eyes to rest. When the car arrived at the hotel, Han Qian was woken up by the warmth. Fine. He only had one drink, and he was still not broken and unconscious, but there were still no thoughts in his mind. He was carried upstairs by nursery rhymes like a walking zombie. When he entered the room, he smelled a scent. There was a tuba in the room. Luggage and some essentials for going out. Han Qian walked into the room, sat at the coffee table on the edge of the balcony, and whispered, "It seems your sister is not here." Tong Yao put down the room card and key in her hand, opened her suitcase and rummaged around inside. Han Qian tilted his head and said in confusion, "What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for a piece of her clothes. They all smell of cigarettes. You guys are so good at smoking. I just called her and she won't be back for a while. I asked the front desk for a pot of tea, which will be delivered to her in a minute. When you come up, you open the door and I'll wash your hair and change my clothes." "Oh." Han Qian was sitting on the balcony with his eyes closed and his head was in a daze. He didn't know how long it had been. He felt that when he fell asleep, a nursery rhyme woke him up. He opened his eyes and looked at the nursery rhyme standing next to him pouring tea. Han Qian smiled slightly. Stunned, he frowned. "Why are you dressed like this?" Red hip-hugging skirt, black suspenders, still wearing high heels on her feet, her wet long hair hanging freely, she lost her former intellectuality and suddenly became sexy. This sexiness is somewhat different from Yan Qingqing's wildness. Nursery rhyme poured the tea and frowned and said in a deep voice, "How did I know that her suitcase was full of hip-hugging skirts? She told me that she was talking about anchors, and anchors need to wear these." Han Qian picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea and whispered, "Offline, thank you, big brother, for coming." After hearing this, Tong Yao sighed, sat opposite Han Qian, looked out the window at the night, and whispered, "I'm going back to my hometown tomorrow. My brother has been discharged from the hospital and is home to recuperate. My dad is also injured. My mom can't take care of two people at home alone." Han Qian nodded slightly and whispered, "I may have to leave the day after tomorrow. The next time we see each other will be after the Chinese New Year. It will be 2 months. Child monster, will you miss me?" "Maybe. I'm wondering if I won't have to pay you back after you die. I've only known you for a few months and I owe you 110,000. Haha, I'm a failure as a person, and you are a failure too. Are you afraid that I won't pay you back if you dare to lend me a loan? We don't even have an IOU, Han Qian." While talking, Tong Yao stood up, took out a bottle of red wine from the suitcase, and laughed softly. "Drink it for her, are you okay?" Han Qian put down the teacup, patted his chest and shouted that men can't say no. The numbness of alcohol made Han Qian wonder how much he weighed. When the nursery rhyme reached 2 glasses of wine, Han Qian took a sip and drank it. Then he breathed a sigh of relief. Sighed. "I never thought that you would not pay back the money, nor did I think about when you would pay me back. I was defeated by money once. At that time, I felt that there was no light in my sky. I was lucky to meet warmth. I am lucky, and I don't want you to become unlucky. Maybe you have known me for half a year, and I can't come up with money to lend you. When will you get rich, and when will you give it to me? How old are we? They're all the same, it's not that easy to make money. Nursery rhyme held her chin with one hand, looked out the window and sipped her wine, saying softly, "Yes, life is not what I want. I thought at that time, if you reject me, my next step will be to have a flash marriage. As long as you give me medical expenses, I will marry him, and then I will pay him back when I have saved enough money. I divorced and continued to pursue my life. That night I pushed open your door and breathed a sigh of relief after getting your promise to me. Only then did I realize how worried I was that you would reject my request, and only then did I know that he is a patient who fears marriage. Han Qian, thank you very much, I will return the money to you, I will definitely return it to you." Han Qian smiled and did not answer. At this time, Tanjao gave Han Qian another glass of wine and said softly, "Han Qian, have you ever thought about being sorry for Nuan Nuan?" Han Qian tilted his head and looked at Tong Yao, then nodded slightly. "I have thought about it. It's not exactly thought, but fear. I am a conservative and pedantic person." "So you are still a virgin and Yushasai has not been successful?" Han Qian shook his head. This sheikh was in denial, but also to clear his mind. The image of the ripples at the resort had already appeared in his mind, and he also thought of Cai Qinghu that night. Han Qian stood up, shook his head and whispered, "No, I have to go to bed. I'm a little abnormal now. I'm worried that I will do something wrong." Tanjao also stood up at this time. She had a really good figure. She couldn't tell when she wore loose clothes in the past. The hip-covering skirt now perfectly showed off her figure. Tanjao stretched out her hand to hold Han Qian's arm. Said softly, "I don't blame you. But I blame myself." Retaining the last trace of sobriety, Han Qian said these words. At this time, Han Qian felt that his body was very hot. He opened the buttons of his shirt collar and smelled the perfume on nursery rhyme, which was exactly the same as when he walked into the room. When he walked past the bed, Han Qian leaned forward, and in panic he grabbed Tong Yao's slender arm. After falling back onto the bed, a nursery rhyme fell on Han Qian's body and whispered in his ear. "Han Qian, I don't have a cousin, and no one is here. I drugged you, I sprayed the aphrodisiac." Han Qian gritted his teeth and wanted to push Tanjao away, but he found that his arms had no strength. He even said that he didn't want to push this woman away. Han Qian gritted his teeth and said solemnly, "What do you want to do? I'm going to stop you from being a virgin." As soon as he finished speaking, Tong Yao opened his mouth and bit Han Qian's neck. His white hands untied Han Qian's belt. At this moment, Han Qian lost himself. He turned over and pressed Tong Yao under him, breathing heavily. Angry, eyes scarlet. "You don't regret it?" Tong Yao held Han Qian's neck with both hands and choked. "I am a despicable woman, Han Qian, don't pity me, don't take advantage of other men." As soon as the words fell and their lips touched, Han Qian completely lost his mind. Frankly speaking, nursery rhyme looked at the man in front of her. No regrets. Because Tong Yao had a good impression of Han Qian, when Han Qian carried her home, she realized that she did not reject this man, but she could only hide this love in her heart and suppress it on her lips. Tanjao is willing, and Tanjao understands Han Qian's character very well. But she had been preparing for this for a long time, and she would not embarrass Han Qian or make him unable to face Nuan Nuan. Because Tanjao knew that she and Han Qian would never meet again, not in this life. The nursery rhyme clung to Han Qian's body, speaking softly into his ear in the gentlest tone. "This is just a dream that I love you. Please vote for me, please recommend me, Please give me a reward. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 404. The sky was gray in the early morning, and snowflakes were falling on the window sill. I peeked at the naked man sitting on the bed with his upper body naked. He seemed confused and angry. For a brief 5 minutes, he sat on the bed motionless. He seemed to be gathering courage. The next second he lifted the quilt and looked at the blossoming plum blossoms on the sheets. Han Qian exploded and threw off the quilt regardless of his shoulder injury. Rushed out of bed, found his cell phone and frantically dialed a number that kept getting hung up on. After I don't know how many times, the call was finally connected, and Han Qian whispered into the phone in a very calm tone. "Where? To get married." There was silence on the other side of the phone, as if there was no one there. After a long time, a frivolous laugh sounded. "Oh, don't be so sentimental. Have you considered your ex-wife when you marry me? Have you ever thought about Yan Hu? Where's Secretary Cai? We just drank too much last night and things happened that should happen to grown men and women. Young master, don't be so naive. I don't like you, I just don't want to be a virgin anymore. Don't force me to whip you." Nursery rhyme, where are you? Han Qian's voice was still very soft and indifferent. The nursery rhyme on the other side of the phone looked at the scenery flashing outside the window and smiled lightly. "I don't know where I am. I must be far away from you. I tell you seriously that I don't like you and you don't like me. We just drank too much last night and it happened. I did something that shouldn't have happened, so be it. The money I owe you, I will try my best to pay it back to you." The phone was hung up, and when Han Qian called again, the phone was turned off. On the train, Tong Yao's mobile phone was in popular mode, holding the mobile phone in both hands and playing the mobile version of Metal Slug seriously. There was no trace of regret on his face, and there was no nostalgia in his eyes. There was only persistence in the mobile game, and he would succeed after working hard. It can break the domestic record. Come on, come on, come on. Tong Monster is a monster, she is very smart. In this circle centered on Han Qian, Tong Monster is the woman who knows how to observe and analyze the most. She looks at things in a different direction from normal people, but she can always hit the nail on the head. Regarding what she did last night, she didn't think she was at fault, nor did she think she had to do anything with Han Qian just because something like this happened. What Han Qian thinks about is your Han Qian, and your Han Qian's persistence. It has nothing to do with my nursery rhymes. I won't listen to what you said, not at all. The game is so fun. The man sitting next to nursery rhyme has been staring at the girl. From the moment he saw the girl getting in the car, dressed plainly and going out without makeup, to the moment the girl sat next to him, he deliberately revealed the car on his wrist. Luxury car, with the fingers of his hands crossed in front of him, the ring on the little finger of his left hand and the ring on the thumb of his right hand all show his ability and status. The price of this pair of hands alone is more than the price of Dakian ER's McLaren, forcing Wu Saiquan to give up everything in exchange for the benefits. He considers himself successful. But this girl never looked at him. From what she just answered the phone, the man could guess something. He could clearly hear the man's roar on the phone, and the things were clearly visible. The man found that he didn't mind these things, but was more interested in this comparison. The strange girl became very interested. When he was struggling with how to talk to this girl, the Apple mobile phone, which had not yet been released in China, rang. The man picked up the mobile phone and looked at the number on it. After thinking for a long time, he pressed the answer button. "I have my own legs, so I don't need you to pick them up. When I get home in the afternoon, the old man is at home. Isn't he critically ill and hospitalized? Are you tricking me into going on a blind date again? I have never been on a train. I wanted to give it a try, but I failed." He hung up the phone immediately after saying that. When he put down the phone and turned to look at the girl next to him, he found that she was no longer playing games. She was looking at him with half a bun in her hand. The man's eyes did not hide the joy, and he was about to speak. The girl turned her head back again. Belch. No matter how powerful the child monster is, she will still feel embarrassed when she burps in front of so many people. He mustered up the courage to take out a bottle of mineral water from his bag and put it on the small table of the train. He carefully pushed it towards the girl. Tanjeo turned his head and glanced at the water on the table without any pretense. After drinking the water, Tanjeo thought he had found a life and spoke softly. "How much? I'll give it to you." The man was not pretentious and laughed softly. 66. Nursery Rhyme's hand trembled, and she picked up the mineral water again, studying. "Why is this water so expensive? I didn't want to take the train, so I chose this green train, and then spent 66 on a bottle of water?" She gave the money to the man in pain, and Tanjeo looked at him suspiciously, full of vigilance. The man took the money and laughed. "I'm not selling mineral water, I have a good eye for you, I think." "No, you don't." The nursery rhyme answered in the affirmative, and the man smiled and chuckled softly. "You are very cute, and your name is also very nice. I would like to ask, Miss Tong, did you have a fight with your boyfriend? I know it's presumptuous, but you still ask? Do you want to make up the class? I am a teacher and can teach you some Chinese rules." The child monster's answers were always not what the man expected, so he found that he liked this girl even more, and smiled. "Excuse me, can you ask me the price of a class? My grades in math, physics, and chemistry are pretty good, but my Mandarin and Chinese etiquette are a little worse." Tong Yao continued to eat the buns and said calmly. 1,000 lessons, 40 minutes. Can I cover it for a year? Bah! The bun in his hand fell on the table. Tong Yao stood up and glared at the man, saying angrily, "You pay for my buns." The man took out $2 and carefully placed them on the table. Tanjeo put the money away, took out a new bun and handed it to the man. Then she put on her earphones and stopped talking to him. The man didn't bother him either. She stammered and lived for 30 years. "I have never eaten steamed buns." His family and his misophobia do not allow him to eat food from roadside stalls, but he feels that the buns in his hand are delicious. He used to think that he didn't need women, and the experiences of the people around him made him feel scared. Now he finds that girls are really cute. He suddenly remembered something a very annoying guy said to him. "Men's bones are very mean. You don't even bother to look at the woman who pursues you, but the girl who ignores you will make you fly into the flames, just like me and your sister-in-law." He also said something back at that time. "Judging from the physiognomy, my sister-in-law and you are not a good match." Listening to the train announcement, "The next stop is the capital," the man turned his head to look at the nursery rhyme and said softly, "Miss Tong, this is my contact information. If you encounter any trouble, you can contact me. Don't worry, I am very simple." After saying that, the man stood up and walked towards the train door without looking back. Tong Yao glanced at the business card on the table and originally thought of throwing it away. When he saw the name on it, Tong Yao was stunned and picked up the business card crookedly. Nodding his head, he whispered softly, "What a coincidence. The business card is very simple. It seems that it was made by myself and the name was written by myself. Lu Sheng dances." No wonder it looked familiar, and the next second Tong Yao threw the business card on the ground. They were just passing by, and then Tong Yao lay on the table and hummed softly. The train traveled for a day and a night. Tanjeo got off the train with her school bag and her suitcase on her back. When she turned on her phone, countless messages flooded in. Just as she was about to call her mother, Han Qian called again. Tanjeo wrinkled her nose. He snorted and was immediately blacklisted. The next second Tong Yao squatted on the ground and groaned in pain. What should I do? Han Qian will definitely not let me go. After saying that, Tong Yao stood up, held up her cell phone and shouted loudly. Back in time. Then he ran away under the gaze of everyone. It's not easy to use. Eat first. Rabbit head, my favorite rabbit head, rush rush duck. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 405. Tong Yao was chewing on the rabbit's head heartlessly, while Han Qian felt bad all over. He found that his persistence was useless. He has always remembered one sentence: if he can't give this girl a future, don't harm her present. At this moment, he wanted to give nursery rhyme a future, but the monster ran away. Han Qian squatted at the door of the hotel and looked at Beidou on his mobile phone, trying to see if anyone could experience this kind of thing in common. Then he went to get some advice, but he couldn't find any. What a fate. This kind of thing is less likely to happen than an atomic bomb hitting the head, right? She is still a young girl. Suddenly, Han Qian had an idea. He took a taxi to get the car, and then drove all the way back to the Imperial City Garden. He yelled at Zheng Jing to open the door. When he walked into Zheng Jing's home again, he found that it was much cleaner, but Han Qian couldn't care less. Duo closed the door furtively and pulled Zheng Jing all the way to the bathroom. Under Zheng Jing's confused eyes, Han Qian spoke. Zheng Jing, I want to ask you something. Master Han, please tell me. That's right, one of my friends was raped. Is it useful to call the police? That's for sure. What I hate most are those who rape women. No, my friend is a boy. Zheng Jing was embarrassed and whispered. This, Mr. Han, our country's protection of women and children from forced or threatened sexual relations is still very general for men, and for men, that woman is ugly. Han Qian scratched his head, wondering. My friend said it's not ugly. Well, it's the same type as nursery rhymes. Isn't that a big profit? If a woman has that kind of disease, it's almost like filing a case. Well, Miss Huanghua, and now this girl can't be found. Zheng Jing leaned back slightly, looked at Han Qian with contempt, and whispered. Mr. Han, this person you are talking about is not you, is it? The person who raped you was Teacher Tong? Then Teacher Tong ran away. Do you want to report the crime and find her? Why do I feel that you came here to stimulate me? Hey, Master Han. Hey. Are you having sex? Han Qian grabbed Zheng Jing's collar and shook it vigorously, roaring angrily. Damn you, uncle. Find someone for me. Also, if you dare to let the third person know, I will throw you into the sea and feed the conches. Han Qian pushed Zheng Jing away and left. Just as he was about to go out, Zheng Jing chased after him, took a band-aid and handed it to Han Qian, whispering. Master Han, it's better to stick it on your neck. After leaving the house, Han Qian didn't want to go back. He had never encountered such a thing before. Now he was very confused and didn't know how to deal with it, but he didn't want to drink to drown his sorrows. Han Qian went out and drove to number 3 high school. Li Duoli ran over to pick up Han Qian, and then Han Qian actually went to Li Duoli's class teacher to avoid being discovered by Ni Duan. Not long after that, Han Qian grabbed Li Duoli's back collar and kicked his ass in the office. Puppy love, fighting, skipping classes, contradicting the teacher, failing 3 subjects. Failed to pass 100 in all subjects. Li Er shouted, covering his butt. Brother-in-law. I'm not in puppy love anymore, I'm 19. Han Qian was slightly taken aback, and whispered that 19 was indeed not young anymore. His brother-in-law and brother-in-law left the office. Li Duoli leaned into Han Qian's ear and whispered that he was no longer a virgin, and then Han Qian almost threw him downstairs. The two squatted at the door of the school, Han Qian smoking a cigarette and looking at the sky. Nursery rhyme resigned. Is this monster trying to avoid him? The biggest moment of silence is when you want to take responsibility but no one is there. What is this thing called? Han Qian raised his head and wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, feeling a little aggrieved. Li Duoli squatted beside Han Qian and whispered. Brother-in-law, I will go home with you to celebrate the new year. Go if your father tells you to. Brother-in-law, please give me a cigarette too. What are you smoking, little brat? I'm heartbroken. She said I'm too handsome and can't give him a sense of security. My damn charm has nowhere to go. Hey, it's so difficult to be a man. Isn't that what the nursery rhyme thinks too? What kind of mess is going on in this monster's head? Han Qian handed Li Duoli a cigarette. When the latter reached for the lighter, Han Qian threw the lighter into the manhole cover. Seeing this, Li Duoli sneered, pointed to the distance and suddenly spoke. Teacher Tong. Han Qian suddenly turned his head, and then the cigarette in his mouth was taken away by Li Duoli, who was deceived. Li Er grinned. Brother-in-law, although Teacher Tong is a bit stupid, he is pretty, not much better than my sister. Besides, a man who is a real man cannot avoid having 3 wives and 4 concubines. He stood up and sighed. Hey, you can play by yourself. I'm leaving first. Whenever your father asks you to find me, you can call your sister. Han Qian left and called Tanjeo when he got in the car. Hello, the user you are calling is busy, please call again later. This is blacklisted. What the hell is going on in this monster's head? Han Qian had no choice at all. There must be a road to the mountain. He drove to the blue house to take a bath. The bath master pressed him on a stool and gave him a good rub. After leaving the blue house, Han Qian didn't know where to go. He thinks he is unclean and does not want to find warmth or anyone. When he got home, Han Qian took off his clothes and went to bed, covered his head and started to sleep. It was useless to think about anything now, and he didn't want to think about it. He just went to sleep. When he left here and returned home, these things would come to a temporary end. Don't miss it, don't miss it, don't miss it. Within a few minutes, Han Qian jumped out of bed, got up, ran down the 2nd floor, and rushed into the bathroom. When he came out, he tied this towel on his head and put on rubber gloves on his hands. He took a deep breath. Start cleaning the glass, mopping the floor tiles, looking at the floor tiles with a magnifying glass, find sheets and cover the sofa and coffee table. Wash the dishes and chopsticks in the kitchen and wrap them in plastic wrap. Han Qian is sick. There is a serious disease in the brain. He was ready to leave at dawn tomorrow and no longer live in the city that made him sad and hurtful. After cleaning up the room, Han Qian went up to the 2nd floor lonely, lay on the bed and took out his cell phone to make a call to Nuan Nuan. Xiao Nuan, how about we go home tomorrow morning? Nuan Nuan was a little confused and said softly. I have a lot of things I haven't bought yet. Didn't I say I would go back the day after tomorrow? What's wrong? I want to go home. What's going on? Where are you? I'm going to find you. Warm. I want to go home. Go back. Come back tomorrow morning, I will drive to pick you up. Good. Han Qian cried, lying on the bed with tears falling down his face. He felt that his persistence for so many years was of no use at all. Reality defeated all Han Qian's fantasies. As a man, he must shoulder the responsibility and be able to bear the responsibility. Give women a shelter and a home. But now, what to do? Just pretend that nothing happened? Han Qian was very aggrieved, very, very wronged. At this moment, the culprit who made Han Qian doubt his life was not burdened at all. He held the meat skewers in his left hand and a cup of hot milk tea in his right hand and kicked open the courtyard door of his home. "Mom, Dad, I'm back. Little brother, I brought you some meat skewers." It seems that the situation of Han Qian and Tong Yao is reversed. Nursery rhyme is like a scumbag who cheats money and sex. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 406. Han Qian's hometown is not far away, but the road is too difficult to walk. Nuan drove Xiaohong and muttered softly. "Didn't we already say that there will be a highway built? It's been a few years, and there has been no movement. You will show the way to the county town first. How can you go home with empty paws? What happened to you yesterday?" Han Qian was sitting in the passenger seat, looking at the map on his phone, and replied carelessly. "I was raped." Puff. When Nuan laughed out loud, parked the car on the side of the road, turned around, stretched out his hand, pinched Han Qian's face and pulled hard, laughing. "Have you been ridiculed for being a virgin and something went wrong? And raped you? Who can't think of raping you, a lunatic? I'm stupid. I like you, a man who is struggling on the verge of death. I'm a little tired if you drive the car." It can't be said that when Nuan didn't believe it. He probably wouldn't believe anyone who told him that a big man was raped. Han Qian didn't want to hide it, but when didn't believe it. He didn't explain. He opened the door and got out of the car. When he opened the door, Wen was already there. Sitting in the passenger seat, Han Qian said helplessly. "Can't you get out of the car and take a few steps? Tired? I guess we won't get home until this afternoon. Have you told your parents?" "Nope." Han Qian started the car and headed to the county town. Han Qian's hometown is a very underdeveloped place. When he returned home last year, his home was still a small mud house. I don't know what it has become after the house was renovated this time. When he arrived at the county seat, Han Qian opened his suitcase, took out 3 or 4 wads of cash and handed it to Wen Nuan. Nuan looked at the tens of thousands of dollars in his hand and asked in a low voice. "Did you get the money back from Yan Qingqing's place?" Han Qian closed the trunk, shook his head at Wen Nuan and grinned. "No, this is my bonus this year. There are still more than 20 points in the box. I will find a bank to deposit it in your card later. Why don't we pay back some of the money I owe you?" I don't know where the sentence came from. Wen Nuan kicked Han Qian's calf hard and said angrily. "Damn straight man." After saying that, he turned around and walked into the home appliance. Everything else is not important. Buying a TV for your parents-in-law is the most important thing first. When you see your mother-in-law, Han Qian will be bullied. He fantasizes about having your mother-in-law supporting you. Nuan turns his head to Han Qian. Qian smiled naively. "Let's go." It seemed like it had been a long time since we went shopping with Wen Nuan. When we walked into the mall, Wen took Han Qian's hand and clasped their fingers together. Han Qian looked down and smiled. "Are you afraid I'll run away?" Wen Nuan walked forward with his head held high and snorted with his little nose. "There are no annoying Yan Fox and Cai slut here. I'm the biggest. Go and squander the money you earned." Wen Nuan was like a child at this time, curious about everything: TV, refrigerator, washing machine. Wen carefully inquired like a salesperson. Then when he heard that delivery could not be delivered, Wen sighed unhappily and turned his head to look. Xiang Han Qian sighed. "What should I do? I can't deliver, and Xiaohong can't pretend." Han Qian stretched out his hand and pinched his warm little nose, smiling. "Buy a TV first, don't buy that kind of smart TV. I always think smart TVs are not smart at all. Young people don't watch TV, and old people don't understand. I don't know what these manufacturers think. They don't have brains. Don't you enjoy selling TVs? Nuan bent over and looked at the TV and whispered. Sell, but don't produce. Branding is too expensive and the profit is not high. Buy this one. This one is bigger. Mom can see it more clearly. I have to stay at home for more than 2 months. Please teach Mom. Can Xiaohong let it go? Oh, I wish I could drive a pickup truck back. I miss Yan Fox a little now. Her Raptor is just the right truck. Han Qian smiled and did not answer. I bought a TV and some random things, most of which were snacks, and a few of which were clothes. In Nuanwen's words, I couldn't buy them all, otherwise I wouldn't be able to go to the market with my mother-in-law. Then Wenwen drove, and the car turned 80 all the way. Go home. At home, the new house has been built. Qian's mother is holding a new quilt in her hands and spreading it on the Kong in the west room. The old man brings drinks, mineral water, melon seeds, and snacks into the room. He looks very busy and says softly. The 2 children don't believe it either. We are so busy, so don't come back by then, hey. Qian's mother glared at the old man and said angrily. Don't be ridiculous. What your son said may be correct, but this is what Xiao Nuan said. If you don't come back tomorrow, you will come back the day after tomorrow. Get ready for the 2 children to come back early. I have been tired for a year. As a mother, I have nothing else to do. No, it's necessary to reach out with clothes and open your mouth to eat. Have you bought crabs? The more expensive they are, Xiao Nuan likes to eat them. The old man smiled naively. Not yet. I thought I would ride a motorcycle to buy the 2 children when they come back. If I buy them now, it will be no longer new if I die. Hey, I'm afraid Xiao Qian won't let you go then. He seems to have a good temper. If this is true, even 10 cows won't be able to pull him back. Let's go now while the weather is warm. Good. The old man didn't hesitate, put on his cotton-padded jacket and went out to borrow a motorcycle. His daughter-in-law came back only once a year, so she had to take it seriously. Qian's mother and the old man were both from rural areas, and their thoughts were simple. Han Qian, a prodigal child, didn't go to school well, had no education, and didn't have a good family. He was thankful to find a wife, but he ended up marrying a city man. Not only is she beautiful, but she also has money. So far, they don't know where Han Qian's 400,000 yuan came from, and they always thought it was given by Nuan. Of course, Qian's mother doesn't care about money or looks. She just thinks that the precious daughter that someone has raised for more than 20 years is marrying into your family. You can't let someone feel wronged. Your child is a treasure, and so are other people's children. Darling, you can't say that you treat your own children the same or better than your own children. Qian's mother sat by the Kong. As soon as she sat down, she quickly stood up and patted the quilt she had just sat on to make sure it didn't get dirty. Xiao Nuan had a misophobia. In order to wait for her daughter-in-law to come back for the new year, Qian's mother started preparations early. She walked out of the main house and went to the side room to look at the frozen meat. This year Qian's mother was determined and rich. She bought half a pig in one go. My daughter-in-law likes to eat meat, so she will always eat it. Only those who are fat are healthy. Qian's mother once took a look at the frozen fish. Now she feels that her days are like years, and she misses her son and daughter-in-law. When can I come back? Little did they know that Xiaohong had already parked outside the yard. Nuan opened the car door and whispered softly. Han Qian, why do I feel like it was our dad who rode the motorcycle just now? I didn't watch it. I went to get the TV and you were carrying the things you bought. I said don't buy so much. You insisted on buying it, and then you bought it? I'll hit you if you're nagging. Faced with the threat, Han Qian shut up obediently, got out of the car and took out the TV in the back seat. This scene gave the talkative women who were sitting in the plastic shed leaning against the stove eating melon seeds something to talk about. Huh? Isn't that kid from the Han family? He drove back here? Is he promising? What are you looking for? Didn't you see that the car was driven by a girl? Is this the daughter-in-law of the Han family? She looks good. I've heard people say it before, but we haven't seen it before. I heard that the boy from the Han family got a son-in-law who came to their house. Their family was so poor that they lost their hips. It seems that this girl also built this house. Let me tell you, maybe someone raised the mistress. The boy from the Han family was attracted by this girl. Damn, you are so arrogant, look at that bitch like Ding Yan. Han Qian once said that people with dark hearts will see the world with dark eyes. Of course, Han Qian didn't hear these talkative women chewing their tongues. When Qian's mother saw her son and daughter-in-law suddenly returning, she was so excited that she didn't know what to do until Wen Nuan shouted, "Mom! I'm back." Qian's mother came back to her senses and hurriedly stepped forward to take the thing from Wen Nuan's hand, but Wen didn't give it to her. She pressed her face against her mother-in-law's and said softly, "Mom, if you're not in good health, don't take it." "Where's Dad?" "Mom, let me tell you, I just saw a man passing by on a motorcycle, and he looked like Dad." Qian's mother still took the thing in her warm hands and smiled fondly. "That might be your dad. He went to buy crabs for you. Come on, go to the house. It's cold." Han Qian, who had already put the TV into the room, walked out, looked at his mother resentfully, and whispered, "Mom, haven't you seen your son? Do you think he is your daughter-in-law?" After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 407. Qian's mother had already ignored Han Qian, held Nuan Wen's hand and put him on the Kong, turned around and slapped Han Qian on the shoulder, saying angrily, "Hurry up and light the fire. What are you doing in a daze?" As Han Qian walked out the door, he was chattering. They also came back together. Why is the gap so big? When he walked to the door of the outer room, Han Qian remembered something and went back to the east room to wonder. Hey? Mom, didn't I tell Xiaozi that this house has floor heating? Why do you still need to burn firewood? Oh, yes, if you didn't tell me, Mom would have forgotten. I'm going to turn on the floor heating, so you go and light the stove too. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Qian's mother is not used to her son at all, and Han Qian has been used to it since he was a child. Both his mother and the old man adhere to the concept of spoiling a child is like killing a child and are very strict with the only son in the family. When once he went down to the ground to help, but was pushed back to the Kong by Qian's mother. She took out a small blanket to cover her warm feet and pressed her warm calves. Qian's mother said dotingly, "Just wait for the food to come and open your mouth. Your dad went to buy crabs. If you want to eat anything else, I'll ask your dad to buy them." Nuan narrowed his eyes and smiled naively. "I like to eat everything my mother makes." Then he lowered his head and whispered shyly, Mom, I don't want to eat vegetables." Qian's mother was amused by her daughter-in-law's cute appearance, patted her warm calf and smiled. "Mom will cook meat for you. Han Qian, go and bring the drinks and snacks from West Room to Xiao Nuan." Han Qian, who had just lit the stove, squatted on the ground to add firewood and muttered emotionally, "It's not like she has no legs. Why are you so spoiled? If you're thirsty, take it yourself. I don't care about you. Mom." A cry full of coquettishness made Han Qian suffer. Qian's mother took a fly swatter and landed it on her son's shoulder again and again. It didn't hurt even though it was thickly dressed, but Han Qian always felt a little warm in his heart. Daughter, he feels like a son-in-law. After thinking about it carefully, I realized that it was quite good. He was treated the same as he is now by his mother-in-law. As soon as Chien's mother went to the side room to prepare for cooking, Wenwen slipped out of the house and squatted in Hanwen wearing the newly bought pink rabbit cartoon slippers. Chien watched him burning the large stove in the west room and whispered, "It's better to have this big pot. The food tastes different from the electric wok. This one is fragrant." Han Chien turned his head and curled his lips to look at Wen Nuan, saying with disdain, "It seems like you can taste the taste. You are so powerful now. You have a backer to act like a spoiled child. Tomorrow afternoon I may go to see my little ones. If you don't want to go, just stay at home with your parents. Xin seems to be come back tomorrow afternoon and let's get together. I am coming too." "What are you going to do?" "I said I would go too. Without you." Mom Han Chien goes out, woo. Before he finished speaking, when Nuan's mouth was covered, Han Chien glared at Wenwen and said angrily, "Why are you acting like a flatterer? What else will you do besides complaining? You are not allowed to complain. We will go together tomorrow afternoon. If you agree, just nod." When Nuan nodded, and before Han Chien let go, the fly swatter landed on Han Chien's shoulder again. When Chien's mother heard her daughter-in-law calling her, she guessed that Han Chien was bullying Wenwen again. While patting his son on the shoulder, he scolded him. "You just finished getting the firewood. Xiao Nuan's face is so tender. If you scratch it, I'll beat you to death." Han Chien sighed helplessly, took his hand away, then pinched Wen Nuan's face with a little baby fat, looked at his mother and said helplessly, "Look at this thick-skinned guy, he's not as tender as you said. Mom, you don't know how powerful your daughter-in-law is. The two of us. It hurts." A faint sound of pain made Han Chien quickly let go, stood up and ran out the door, but he was still too slow. Chien's mother took a fly swatter to deal with Han Chien, and when Nuan squatted in front of the stove and carefully added chai, smiling from ear to ear. "Very nice." When the old man came back with the crabs and looked at his son squatting in the yard doing the splits, he grinned. Then he noticed something was wrong with his son's behavior. His son was not left-handed, so why was he holding an axe with his left hand? He frowned and stepped forward. He raised his foot and lightly kicked his son's butt, saying in a deep voice, "You don't need to approve the firewood at home. Your father is still alive. Go back to the house and stay there." Han Chien lowered his head and sighed, then raised his head and looked at the sky and sighed. "There is no place for your son in this house. It's a pity that my father is not a family member. If I were in charge, you wouldn't be able to get through the door. Show me your arm." The old man is a clumsy person who can't say nice things. He feels very sorry for his son in his heart, but he just can't say those heartwarming words. He knows he feels sorry for his son and is worried about being tired and doesn't want him to work, but the words come out of his mouth. This tastes great. This means that Han Chien understands the old man's character. If it were another son, he might have started a quarrel. Han Chien turned around and looked at the foam box held under the old man's arm, and whispered, "Where did you buy crabs in this winter? I said let me see your arm. Why are you asking about the crab? Can the crab claws be reattached to you? Are you injured again? Something happened in your city. I heard that there is an enthusiastic citizen named Han. Our old Han family has talented people. When will you be nice to me, old man? Shall I take you to see your coffin?" "Mom. My dad said that he wants to live in the city with me, dance in the square with the old lady, hug and kiss me. Dad, please kiss me." "Ah." The back of Destiny's neck was pinched hard by the old man. Han Chien's small body was like holding a little chicken in the old man's hands. Han Chien was carried into the house by the old man, and he was carried by one foot. "On the butt," he said indifferently. "If you're injured, just get out of the pit and lie down. It's not your turn to work in this house, little brat. Girl, how do you eat these crabs? Stew them or stir-fry them? Or steam them? When Nuan seemed a little embarrassed, she seemed to want to eat everything. Han Qian lay on the hot kong, pinched his mother's leg with blood clots, and whispered. She'll eat whatever she cooks. Can you two stop being so partial? There are 2 kids at home, and I'm a kid too. The old man turned around and left. Han Qian got up and chased the old man to the kitchen. When he saw that the old man was about to pack up the crabs, he turned around and ran outside. After waiting for about 5 minutes, the old man spoke. As a coward as you are, I don't think you look like that, Han, but the more I think about it, the more I think you look more like him. Show me your arms. If I don't show it to you, then you'll be nagging me again. I heard you say the injury was serious. Well, don't tell my mother, she was seriously injured twice and almost needed the coffin you prepared. Stare. The kitchen knife in the old man's hand was nailed to the cutting board. The old man turned around and looked at Han Qian, frowning. Where is he? My son has been bullied. I have no reason not to tell him. Han Qian shrugged and said calmly. One ran away, and the other is hiding in Binchinj County. I will handle this matter myself. I haven't gone home to complain to my father yet. Part of the reason for coming back so early is to hide. Quiet, quiet, those stinky old ladies in the village are plotting behind my back, right? The old man turned around and continued chopping vegetables, saying calmly. No matter what they do, they talk about the shortcomings of the East and the West. They just don't want to see other people's good things. Whatever they want to eat, I'll cook it for you. I want to eat blood sausage. Blood sausage, Daddy will buy it for you. What father doesn't feel sorry for his son? It's just a different way of expressing it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 408. Afternoon lunch was placed on the Kong table. Qian's mother sat at the end of the Kong, when Nuan sat in front of the windowsill, opposite her father-in-law, and Han Qian could only sit at the end of the Kong. There were not many dishes, just 4 plates and 1 bowl of meat. Spicy stir-fried crabs, steamed pork buns, and scrambled eggs with garlic sprouts. In the bowl was blood sausage stewed with sauerkraut, which was Han Qian's favorite. They said eating whatever you eat will help you replenish your blood, and he also wanted to replenish his blood. In half a year, the bloodshed is estimated to be enough to fill 2 2L beverage bottles. As soon as the old man picked up his rice bowl, Han Qian suddenly got up and ran out of the yard. He almost forgot about the suitcase in the trunk. He dragged the suitcase into the house and took out the wine prepared by Yan Qingqing and handed it to the old man. Smiled. My boss gave it to you, you can try it. The old man took the wine and smiled. Don't you drink some? Han Qian shook his head and got on the Kong. The old man held the wine in his hand and looked around, with a look of satisfaction on his face. Anyone who receives a gift during the Chinese New Year is happy. It doesn't matter how expensive the gift is. What's important is that someone thinks about it. Of course, the old man knew in his heart that it was only because his son was capable that the boss would give him wine to this bad old man. Han Qian put a piece of pork belly on the rice and sprinkled it with some minced garlic. He was very satisfied after taking 1 bite. At this time, Qian's mother suddenly spoke. Xiaonuan, why don't you eat it? It doesn't suit your taste. Hearing the voice, Han Qian also raised his head and looked at Wen Nuan in confusion. Although this girl was picky about food, she just didn't like vegetables and was not vague about meat at all. Why was she still in a daze? Stretching out her hand and pinching her warm leg under the table, the girl came back to her senses, turned around, took the phone, and blamed herself. "It's done, Han Qian." Han Qian said angrily with a dark look on his face. "I'm still alive. No, I forgot all the cigarettes and alcohol I bought for Dad and the supplements I bought for Mom at home. It's all your fault for cheating on me this morning." While speaking, Nuan had already picked up the phone and made a call. After the call was connected, he whispered, I forgot the gift I bought for my parents-in-law at home. When you come to see me after your work, remember to bring it to me." I'm home. I'm having dinner. I won't tell you any more. I'll eat first." After hanging up the phone, Wen Nuan dropped the phone and walked to her mother-in-law, grabbing her arms with both hands and saying coquettishly, "Mom, Shishi is my best friend. She comes back to China to help me. Her family members are all abroad. I invite her to come to our house to celebrate the new year. You won't be angry, right, Mom?" Not to mention being angry, Qian's mother likes her child's personality, otherwise Han Qian wouldn't have those caring little friends. Qian's mother picked up half a crab and handed it to Nuan, smiling fondly. "It must be a warm welcome. It just so happens that the house at home has been built and there are free rooms. It will be crowded during the Chinese New Year, but I have made a promise first. It's okay to come, and you can't buy gifts or anything like that. Mom is the best. The crabs cooked by Dad are more delicious than the chefs in the restaurant. I can only eat them boiled in water." Han Qian sighed helplessly. It's useless to say anything now. As long as he enters the door of this house, any words Han Qian says will have no effect. Warmth is the greatest, and his parents love him. Now the old man drinks it. I took a sip of wine and sipped my lips with great satisfaction. It tastes good. Xiao Nuan, it's a good thing to invite friends to your home for the new year. Your mother and I are happy to come to your home early and have a lively atmosphere. It's best, Dad. Just take a couple of sips of this wine. When the one I bought for you arrives, throw it away. I'm worried that Yan Hu will poison it." The old man was slightly startled and said doubtfully, "Yan, what? Yan Hu?" Before the third word was uttered, Han Qian took a piece of meat and stuffed it into Wen Nuan's mouth, and said angrily, "I can't stop your mouth after eating. If you don't eat, I'll take the crab down." "Mom." Han Qian bullied me again. Qian's mother smiled with narrowed eyes, knocked on the table lightly, and then the old man put his foot on Han Qian's leg and frowned. "Can't you keep your mouth shut while eating?" Han Qian was immediately furious and put down his chopsticks. Then he saw the chopsticks raised in the old man's hand and raised his hands in surrender on the spot. "I surrender." The comfortable life at home made Han Qian regret not coming back earlier. After dinner, he lay down on the kong, with the old man clearing the dishes, drinks, and melon seeds in front of him. Wen Nuan taught his mother how to tinker with the smart TV, and took the trouble to write it down on paper. Then I posted it on the wall, for fear that my mother-in-law wouldn't be able to learn it. Han Qian was lying on the kong and was just about to light a cigarette. Qian's father, who was sitting on the ground, raised his head and hooked his hand at Han Qian. Han Qian obediently got down to the ground and sat with the old man. The floor was warm and it didn't feel cold. Fiddled with the tobacco leaves Yan Qingqing brought and whispered, "Xiao Nuan seems to be a little interested in your boss." Han Qian handed the old man a cigarette. After the old man shook his head and refused, Han Qian sighed. "It's not a bit, it's basically the kind of pinching you when you meet female. A girl to be exact. The one who called me dad last time. Yan Qingqing, right. Clever. Snapped." A slap on the back of the head almost knocked Han Qian down. Han Qian covered his head with his hands and glared at the old man through gritted teeth. "Wen Nuan, who was sitting on the Kong, saw this and said eagerly, "Dad, he has an injury on the back of his head. The stitches were removed not long ago." This sentence made both Gianna's mother and the old man become nervous. The old man looked at his hands with regret and frowned. "Why are you covered with wounds? Are you dead?" Han Qian covered his head and whispered back. "This one was hit against the wall. Can't you just not do it?" "I won't do it. What father doesn't hit his son? Why don't I hit you if you don't learn how to do it? Then you can't hit your head. Stand up and let me kick you." "I can't, Mom, look at him, he always does it." After returning home, Han Qian became a child, no longer the mad dog Han who stirred up troubles in the city. In the afternoon, Han Qian lay on the Kong in the west room, rummaging through several numbers with his mobile phone. He hadn't seen this person in several years. Several of them have grown up, and they take care of their mother and old man at home. When they come back this time, they have to meet them. The hotbed made sleepiness come over him quickly. In a daze, Han Qian fell asleep. When he woke up, it was already dark outside. When he was about to get up, he found that his arms were heavy. He turned around and saw that he didn't know what was going on. When the warmth came over, he fell asleep with his pillow on Han Qian's arm. He gently raised his warm head and took the pillow, but he still woke the girl up. He looked at Han Qian with sleepy eyes and said vaguely, "Why are you going?" Han Qian reached out and pinched his warm face, smiling. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm a little thirsty. Do you want some water?" His hand was slapped off by Nuan, and he sat up and yawned. "Drink, go to the car and get my pajamas. It's too dark outside and I don't dare to go." Han Qian went to the ground to put on his shoes. When he went out, he saw the old man squatting in front of the stove to light the fire. Han Qian smiled bitterly. "What? Are you trying to roast me to death? I was afraid that you two would be cold and your mother would always kick the quilt off you two, so I set the stove on fire. Your mother has something to do with you. Oh, I'm going to get some clothes for Nuan first." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Huan. Chapter 409. Han Qian, sit over here. Mom wants to ask you something. Looking at his mother sitting on the Kong, Han Qian stood by the Kong without daring to move and whispered. "You can tell me what's going on, why should I sit there?" Qian's mother put down the TV tutorial written by Wen Nuan, raised her head and glanced at Han Qian. The next second, Han Qian put on his slippers and knelt down in front of his mother. Qian's mother picked up the tutorial and continued to read, while whispering. "Did something happen between you and Nuan?" "No. How good we are." Han Qian replied with a silly smile. Qian's mother raised her head and smiled with narrowed eyes. "Really? Are you too sure everything is okay? Then tell me what happened to the girl who called you dad when your dad called you, and Cai King who called me mom? Don't make any fuss with me." "Just kidding, why don't they have fun with others like this? Instead, they have fun with you, a married man." "This, I don't know either." Han Qian couldn't admit it to death. If his mother and the old man heard from him that they were divorced, Han Qian would definitely not survive tonight. If he didn't admit it, Qian's mother could do something about it, she said softly. "Call me." "Cell phone?" Han Qian gave both mobile phones to his mother without hesitation. Then he saw anger gradually appearing in his mother's eyes. He raised his head and looked at Han Qian and gritted his teeth. "You deliberately." There was not a single number note in Han Qian's phone book. All the call records contained numbers. Han Qian smiled naively. Just when Han Qian thought he had escaped, his phone suddenly rang. Han Qian reached out to grab it. A look from Qian's mother made Han Qian sit on the Kong obediently. Qian's mother answered the phone, and a woman's roar came from the other side of the phone. Han Qian, you scumbag who cheated money and feelings, didn't you say you wouldn't go back to your hometown until tomorrow? My sister came all the way from the capital, and you ran away. Just as Han Qian was about to speak, Qian's mother glared at him again, and then spoke softly into the phone. Hello girl, I am Han Qian's mother. Why did he cheat on you? Tell your aunt. There was silence on the phone for a while. Han Qian closed his eyes and took a deep breath, and then a gentle, stammering voice came from the phone. Hello, aunt. Han Qian and I were just joking. Good night, aunt. Just like that, the call was hung up. Qian's mother put down the phone, took a deep breath, then raised her hand and slapped Han Qian in the face. Han Qian was stunned, and he knelt down on the Kong and didn't dare to move. He still dared to tear up and tear up at the old man's words. Han Qian didn't have the courage to resist his mother at all. Tell me. Who is this girl? Han Qian turned around and pointed at the girl on the TV and said softly. She. Do you think I'm stupid? A big star calls you. Another slap fell on Han Qian's arm. Han Qian covered his arm and said aggrievedly. It's really her. If you don't believe me, ask Nuan Nuan. Wu Qingxi and I have nothing to do with each other. Nuan Nuan. Nuan Nuan, come here quickly. I can't explain it clearly. Explanation? Little brat, I want the truth. Qian's mother grabbed Han Qian's ear and asked what was going on. How could the words defrauding money and defrauding sex appear? When Nuan slowly walked into the house, and looked at Han Qian who was being beaten without any worry. He slowly got on the Kong and sat next to his mother-in-law, and whispered. What's wrong? Han Qian shouted with a grin. Explain to mom, Wu Qingxi called me just now and said I was a scumbag for cheating money and sex. Oh. When Nuan let out a heartless oh, then raised his head to look at Han Qian, tilted his head and said. Isn't this a fact? Wu Qingxi, Cai Qinghu, Yan Qing Qing, you just like to be young. Han Qian replied angrily. Isn't that Ji Zheng? Listen, mom, here comes another one. Do you know how miserable my life is? I worry about those little girls outside in fear every day. Feeling the strength of his mother's hand, Han Qian's warm eyes were about to burst into flames. He called you here to explain, not to add fuel to the fire. Seeing that the matter was about to escalate, Han Qian said hurriedly. Mom, please listen to my explanation. The company I am currently working for is looking for Wu Qingxi to be the spokesperson. Wen Nuan also knows this. Wu Qingxi is a friend of Cai Qinghu. The company asked me to contact her. How dare you say this to Nuan Nuan? Don't you know what's going on? Wen Nuan slapped his forehead, turned his head and nodded seriously to his mother-in-law, and spoke stupidly. Mom. I do know about this. It was Yan Hu who suggested that Han Qian contact him, and Wu Qingxi also has plans for Han Qian. The picture? Qian's mother's strength increased again, and Han Qian shouted in pain. Nuan Nuan, please explain clearly, he asked me to help her with the script. Yes, consult the script. Han Qian always felt that the warmth was intentional. He deliberately did not explain clearly to his mother to deal with him. He covered his ears that had escaped from death. Han Qian lowered his head and muttered. Qian's mother couldn't hear clearly. She leaned against the windowsill and faced Han Qian, kicked his knee and asked with a frown. Looking for you to be an editor? You haven't even graduated from college, and you are still an editor? Why do I not believe it? There is one more thing. I almost forgot if I didn't mention it. Why is Xiaozi so respectful to you? What are you doing in the city now? Woolen cloth. Han Qian covered his ears with one hand and his knees with the other, and whispered back. I'm going to work, what else can I do? Cai King Hu and I are friends, and Xiao Cai is the prosecutor at the Yamen gate. Xiao Zi doesn't want to give others some face. Is there any food left? I'm hungry. Go to bed when you are full and eat when you wake up. When he was full, Han Qian sneaked back into the room on the pretext of going to the toilet. Not long after, the warmth returned. He sat on the bed and looked at Han Qian with his legs crossed and said softly, I was chatting with Shi Si and the others in the group just now, and the nursery rhyme said that she resigned. Oh. Han Qian lay on the bed and replied carelessly with the word oh. Wen Nuan didn't care what Han Qian replied and continued on his own. Her father and brother were injured, and the medical expenses were very high, and she owed a lot of debt. She said she wanted to be a tutor in a supplementary class or a tutor, so that she could earn more. I wanted to lend it to her, but she refused. As for fear of developing dependence, I think nursery rhymes are quite difficult. Her temper and character are definitely unacceptable. Let her go. I get upset when I mention her. Go to sleep. Mentioning these two words, Han Qian's head hurt. He had never heard of such a woman. After handing her over for the first time, she ran away, and she didn't know where she went. After turning off the light, Han Qian turned over and said softly, has nursery rhyme returned to her hometown? Let me ask. Nuan fiddled with the phone for a while, and then said, she said she didn't go home, and she didn't say where she went. Go to sleep. Don't you have something to do tomorrow? I'm having fun. Covering his head with a quilt, Han Qian went to sleep with annoyance. When Han Qian opened his eyes, it was already dawn. He sat up and looked at the person lying on the bed with water dripping from the corner of his mouth. The quilt on his upper body was no longer missing. Where was the warmth? Han Qian shook his head helplessly, covered the girl with a quilt and tiptoed out of the room. When he went out and saw that the old man had boiled water, Han Qian stretched out. Old man, I've got some face wash. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 410. After washing his face and walking out, Han Qian shivered and felt that his breath could freeze into ice. He lowered his head and looked at the small white furry dog wandering in front of his feet, wagging its tail and making love to Han Qian. He knelt down and touched it, holding the dog's head. Huan, where did you wander off yesterday? Huan licked Han Qian's hand, made love for a while, twisted her butt and returned to her den. Huan was a dog brought back by Qian's mother when she was a child. It has been 7 or 8 years, and it is basically free range. Well, there were only a few dogs in the village, and everyone knew him. No one wanted him, mainly because of the old man's temper. Han Qian stood up and shouted to the old man. Old man, how old is Huan? As soon as he finished speaking, the old man walked out of the door carrying the water Han Qian had washed his face with, lightly kicked Han Qian's butt, and frowned. What are you arguing about? Xianyuan is still sleeping. Huan is 7 years old, right? You two are about the same age. It's not easy to live for such a long time. Han Qian walked to the kennel, knelt down and touched the dog's mat, turned around and frowned. What happened to me? What happened to it? The old man poured water into the garden, squatted next to Han Qian, touched Huan's puppy head, and said softly. Look at how big it is, and how jagged the teeth are. It has beaten all the dogs in the village. It chases and bites the ones it can beat, and doesn't run away if it can't beat them. Your uncle's wolf dog is looking at him now. It just hides, look at its ears, their teeth have been bitten out. He stretched out his hand and touched it. Sure enough, there was a chipped tooth. Han Qian patted Huan's puppy head and said with a smile. You can do it, little brother. The old man stood up, lightly kicked Han Qian, and said calmly. I heard Xiao Nuan say that you are going to meet your friends today. I know that you make a lot of money now, and you give it all to your mother to take care of your children. You will never stop visiting during the holidays. Come over to visit me at home, I'll chat with you, and you'll know what's going on. Well, I'm going to go to the county to find them when that lazy guy in the house wakes up. Who are you calling lazy? Wen Huan's voice came from behind, and Han Qian didn't turn his head. He was worried that Huan would suddenly run out and scare Wen, but it seemed that Huan had no intention of getting up and was just wagging his tail. Wen stretched. Yawning, he muttered vaguely. Dad, what are you having for breakfast? Qian's father smiled and said softly. Well, since we're all back home, don't eat those breakfasts in the city. I'll go ask your mother. Okay, Dad. A warm and silly smile. After the old man left, Wen Nuan squatted beside Han Qian, touched Han Qian's head like Han Qian touched Huan, and sighed. Hey, Xiao Qian, when will you be able to listen to Mom as much as Dad does? Han Qian turned his head and looked at Wen Nuan with a conflicted expression, and curled his lips. What? I didn't listen to you in the past 3 years? I gave all my good temper to you, right? You. Good-tempered. As soon as he finished speaking, Wen Nuan opened his mouth and bit Han Qian's face. This sudden move made Han Qian a little confused. He pushed Wen Nuan's head away and said in confusion and disgust. Why are you so crazy so early in the morning? After saying this, Han Qian stood up holding Nuan's hand and walked towards the door of the courtyard. Nuan held Han Qian's hand and walked forward, smiling. I don't know why, but my teeth itch when I see you, and I want to bite you. Do you know how hard it is for me to endure it? As soon as he finished speaking, Han Qian put his hand into his mouth. He didn't dare to exert force with this arm, and pushed Wen Nuan's head with the other hand, saying angrily. You go and lick the door. Wen Nuan was furious when he heard this, kicked Han Qian's calf and said angrily. Last year you used a popsicle to trick me like this. My tongue was stuck and I couldn't take it off, Han Qian. Do you want to duel? Zhan Waza, when will you be able to defeat Yan Qingqing? Let's go. I'll take you to the village. I'm not allowed to help my mother and the old man show off their beautiful daughter-in-law. Bah, shameless. We are divorced. She said this, but there was no hesitation in her steps. She let Han Qian pull her out of the door. Wen Nuan took out a coat and put it on her body in the car. Han Qian didn't even know how many things were packed in the car. Walking on the rural road, smoke curled up from every household's cooking stoves, and past the river loop where Han Qian often played when he was a child. The village was not small, but very backward. Han Qian smiled softly while holding on to the warmth. When I was young, I would follow Xiaohe and Kxian to the internet cafe along this road. Because Kxian was too fat and couldn't ride a bicycle, the three of us just walked there. There was an internet cafe only 10 miles away. Later, because no business license has been seized. Nuan whispered. What fun is there in an internet cafe? I see you don't play games much now. You said you want to study hard. Can you go to a better university? What's the point of going to school? I still have to drop out. If I go to another university, I might not meet you. That's great. Be my slave for 3 years and let this great talent like you go blind for nothing. Then I really have to go to jail. It's fine now. As he was talking, an old man walked across the street, holding 2 sheep. Han Qian stopped and bent down and smiled. Second brother, are you going to herd sheep? The old man nodded and walked away expressionlessly. Seeing this, Wen Nuan was furious and whispered. This old man is so rude. He is mute, has no tongue, and is relatively withdrawn. Let's go. I will take you to see my favorite place when I was a child. Han Qian walked to the depths of the village with Wen Nuan, and found a small private house with ease. The words grocery store were written on the wall of the small private house. Han Qian wanted to go in, but Nuan Wen was a little resistant and stood still. At this time, a young man about the same age as Han Qian walked out of the grocery store. When he saw Han Qian, the young man was slightly startled, and then smiled. "When did uncle come back?" Han Qian smiled. "I just got home yesterday and drank it so early in the morning." The young man scratched his head and smiled. "I bought it for my old man." "Is this my old aunt?" Wen Nuan looked at the word grocery store with a cold face, which made the young man a little embarrassed. Han Qian bumped Nuan Wen's shoulder, but the latter didn't respond at all. Han Qian smiled helplessly at the young man. "Don't pay attention to her. She is a mute. Go back and deliver wine to my elder brother and tell him to drink less." "Okay, uncle, I have nothing to do to go home and sit down. I haven't seen you in 2 years. I will. The young man left, and Wen Nuan also took Han Qian away. She couldn't imagine what was sold in this grocery store. In her mind, the grocery stores were dirty and messy. She really couldn't accept the cooked food. After continuing to walk around the village, Han Qian squeezed his warm hand and whispered, "Why don't you say anything when people talk to you?" Nuan frowned. "I don't know him, why should I talk?" "That's right. You're such a coward and you don't say anything when you meet your relatives. Let's go. Go and have a look at my grandma's grave. You've never been there, right? Let her see her former grandson-in-law." In the city, Wu Qingxi was wearing a white suit and sunglasses sitting in Yan Qingqing's office. Yu Shisai was leaning against the door with her arms folded, Cai Qinghu was standing in front of the window, and Yan Qingqing was sitting in her place. None of the three women looked at each other. Wu Qingxi glanced at Yan Qingqing and Yu Shisai's faces and whispered, "Are you all Han Qian's girlfriend?" Yan Qingqing raised her eyebrows and looked at Wu Qingxi. She stood up and handed the document she had just written to Yu Shisai. This was a contract between Glory and Chang Xiang to find Wu Qingxi to represent them for the planned real estate development in Liancheng. You needed to sign one. He opened the poem and glanced at it, then raised his head and looked at Wu Qingxi, frowning. "Did you call Han Qian yesterday?" As a result, Han Qian was scolded by his aunt for a long time. "Did you come to the city to find Han Qian?" Wu Qingxi replied calmly. "Is it related to you? Are you the mistress?" The words were direct and hurtful. Yu Shisai's face darkened on the spot. She walked to the sofa and threw the documents on the table, saying coldly, "Keep your mouth clean. Chang Xiang can cooperate with you or find other artists to cooperate with." Wu Qingxi didn't even read Yu's poems and continued speaking calmly. "I'm here to help Qinghu clear the obstacles. I'll start with you, the mistress. Oh, you may not even be considered a mistress." This woman's mouth was as good as a nursery rhyme. When had Yu Shisai ever been humiliated like this? She waved her hand and fell towards Wu Qingxi's face. The next second, her wrist was clenched. Wu Qingxi stood up and turned around to pull Yu Shisai's arm threw her onto the sofa. Over the shoulder throw. Yu's poems were thrown to pieces, but at this time Yan Qingqing already felt something was wrong and returned to the desk to touch the baseball bat. At this time, Cai Qinghu, who had been silent in front of the window, spoke. "Little Labo Si never uses a stunt double when filming opposite roles. The explosive power of her right kick can reach 275 pounds in a moment. I advise you not to fight her. Also, Wu Qingxi, if you want to stay, be honest. A little." Cai Qinghu was in a bad mood. She had a headache when she thought of warmth. She was confident in dealing with the other girls around Han Qian, but she couldn't help it. She was so angry that she couldn't hear it. Let's quarrel, she would just turn around. Forget, being heartless makes you invincible. We also know that Wen Nuan's weakness is conservatism, but Han Qian is more conservative than Wen. I have a headache. Yan Qingqing carefully put down the baseball bat in her hand and smiled at Wu Qingxi. Miss Wu, have you ever practiced Kung Fu? Wu Qingxi nodded lightly, stretched out her hand to hold Yu Shisai's calf, threw it aside, and replied softly. I've been studying kickboxing for a few years. The corners of Yan Qingqing's eyes twitched slightly and she laughed dryly. Heh, heh, heh. At this time, Yu Shisai climbed up, glared at Wu Qingxi, and gritted his teeth. Then why didn't you fight with them when Feng Lun arrested you? It was a waste of Han Qian's quota to save people. If it were someone else, Han Qian's road would go further and further, instead of you who called to tell them mom said her son was a scumbag who cheated money and sex. Cai Qinghu frowned and looked at Wu Qingxi, while Yan Qingqing's face also became gloomy and she said in a low voice. Miss Wu, you seem to be out of office. You can make any noise, but you can't slander Han Qian in front of his parents, right? Whether you do it unintentionally or intentionally, I think we need to consider cooperation. To be honest, in the eyes of Yan Qingqing or Wen, Wu Qingxi is not a big deal. She was invited just because of her influence. The world is so big and there are tens of thousands of artists. Even if she is very important, Han if Qian is having a hard time, Yan Qingqing will give up cooperation without hesitation. Wu Qingxi was a little embarrassed when she mentioned this matter, lowered her head and said awkwardly. I didn't know it was my aunt who answered the phone. I will personally apologize to Han Qian for this matter. In fact, I came here in advance this time to express my gratitude to Han Qian for saving me from the Mid-Autumn Festival Gala, but I didn't expect him. He left without making any noise. Because she was thrown once, Yu Shisai was very hostile to Wu Qingxi, so she picked up the documents on the table and said in a deep voice. I will send something to Nuan after I finish handling the matter here. I will ask Han Qian for his opinion then. After all, none of us can help him make the decision now. What do you think, Secretary Cai? After all, Qingxi is your friend. Cai Qinghu shook his head, then frowned and asked. Are you going to Han Qian's house too? Yan Qingqing said immediately. What do you mean she's going to? Are you going to? Cai Qinghu, in what capacity do you go to Han Qian's hometown? Cai Qinghu looked sideways at Yan Qingqing and said coldly. I take care of Auntie's rural cooperative medical care, pension insurance, accident insurance, and the house at home. I'll go visit Auntie again. Do you have any questions? You don't have to go, Yu Shisai. I will send the things to Nuan when the time comes. That's it? No. When Nuan specifically asked me to send it over, so Secretary Cai won't bother. Sparks flew as the two women looked at each other. Yan Qingqing's face was sullen, and she was already thinking about how to kill Han Qian. He invited so many people but didn't invite her? Are you tired of living? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 411. Han Qian has a very high seniority in the village. People in their 40s or 50s would call him uncle when they see him. Of course, there are those who have a good relationship between the two families. For example, the young man who drinks alcohol when his mother was hospitalized. The old man spent all the money he had spent preparing to marry his wife. He owed this favor and could not repay it. Because my wife ran away with someone else. On the way back, some people greeted them warmly, while others made sarcastic remarks. Those old ladies who sat in the plastic shed at the entrance of the village gossiping about their wives all day long said they didn't need to show off when they went home. They all looked at Han Qian. When they grow up, they know how much they weigh. But how could they know that the inconspicuous little bracelet that warms the wrist costs more than 80,000 yuan, and the watch Han Qian wears costs more than 200,000 yuan? Even if I told them, they wouldn't believe it. In their minds, who would spend more than 200,000 yuan to buy a watch? If you spend more than 200,000 yuan, you can buy a building in the city. With their short experience, they could not imagine that much. After returning home, Wen Nuan rushed into the room angrily, put her slippers on the Kong and sat next to her mother-in-law. Qian's mother looked at her daughter-in-law's appearance and raised her hand to deal with Han Qian. At this time, Wen spoke. "Mom, why don't you and Dad move to the city? What kind of people are there? I finally understand what it means that poor people come out of poor places, and education must start from childhood." While Wen Nuan was complaining, the old man put the Kong table in place and frowned. "Those stinky old ladies outside. I'll whip them." While he was talking, the old man picked up the feather duster and walked out the door. He had long wanted to slap these stinky bitches. They didn't do any work and only chatted every day. Qian's mother glared at the old man and frowned. "Why are you talking to them? Just prepare your breakfast and live behind closed doors. They can say whatever they like. They are just jealous that I have a beautiful and sensible daughter-in-law. Let them be jealous. Han Qian, you can also use the bowls and chopsticks. Go." Oh. Han Qian was pushed back by the old man just as he was about to get off the ground. He looked at Qian's mother with a resentful look and frowned. "The child just came back from outside and hasn't warmed up yet. Why do you need to order him? I'll just go and get it." If you observe Han Qian's family carefully, you will find that it is the old man's father who spoils Han Qian, not Qian's mother. It is the old man who likes to do things, and it is also the old man who scolds Han Qian. He does not let Han Qian chop wood, which is very cold. Tianer buys pig blood for filling sausages and prepares face wash in the morning. They are all old men. But it was this stubborn temper that prevented Han Qian from feeling the pampering from his father. Fried bean buns, 2 plates of pickles, a bowl of cabbage stewed with frozen tofu and pork belly, a portion of steamed pork with garlic paste, and a plate of braised vegetables. What Han Qian said was absolutely correct. As long as it was not green vegetables, Wen Nuan would not choose them. Moreover, she liked eating sticky and soft food. Qian's mother took a bean bun and handed it to Wen and said softly, "I remember you don't like sweet beans, right?" Wen Nuan nodded vigorously, and then Han Qian whispered a reminder. "It's etiquette to pick up the bowl and pick it up." As soon as he finished speaking, Qian's mother hit Han Qian on the forehead with her chopsticks, frowning and scolding him. "In your words." Han Qian covered his head and said nothing, and did not hold chopsticks. The old man looked at Han Qian doubtfully and frowned. "Not hungry?" Han Qian raised his head and looked at the old man resentfully, complaining. "I've never liked eating bean buns since I was a kid." Qian's mother was slightly startled and whispered, "Mom, you forgot." A breakfast made Han Qian suspect that he was not his biological child. He could remember that he was warm and did not eat sweet things, but he could not remember that he did not eat sticky things. After the meal, he went down to the ground to help the old man clean up the dishes. When he walked into the kitchen, he asked the old man in a low voice, whether he was his biological child or not. The old man kicked Han Qian and scolded him. After dinner, I lingered for a while. I stayed warm on the hot bed and refused to get up. I said coquettishly and unreasonably that I could go out later. It only took an hour to drive to the county. It was in time. Warm's personality was always slow and leisurely. Han Qian was it's the kind of person who can't sleep until he's done with the things in front of him. He urged Wen Nuan once every 20 minutes. When the number of times increased, Nuan Wen became annoyed by the urging and stood up and said angrily, "Hurry, hurry, hurry, I don't know why you are in such a hurry." After finally changing clothes, Wen Nuan hit the accelerator and sped out of the village. The warm and angry look fell in the eyes of those old ladies. They had another topic today. Han Qian thought about going out early to buy some clothes in the county, and asked Wen Nuan to put the money in the card. This small 300,000 yuan should not be left in the suitcase. When he arrived in the county, Wen Wenhua would not listen to Han Qian, eat, drink and play. Have fun. While buying clothes for Han Qian, he asked in a low voice who among his childhood friends was married. Han Qian shook his head, his eyes confused. "I knew Xiao he was married. I wanted to go, but you wouldn't let me go." Wen Nuan suddenly felt uncomfortable. He pushed Han Qian away and took out his mobile phone to contact K. Murmur. "Kexen's breasts seem bigger than mine." Puff. In fact, Han Qian is a person with a high sense of laughter. Unless he can't help it, he will never laugh. But now that he can't help it, Kexen's bust, wearing a jacket and vest, is indeed as big as Worm's bust. One thing, he can tremble when the main thing is running. Suddenly I remembered Lin Zikong in Kung Fu. After getting in the car, Han Qian was pushed into the back seat. He didn't have a driver's license and had no trouble in the city. No one in the county knew her, Wen Nuan, and no one knew Hanfen Go. Listening to the two sisters discussing what to eat at night, Han Qian sighed helplessly. This is meeting a soulmate. In the end, Han Qian was furious at the two people's decision, and he roared angrily from the back seat. "Can you two consider me? Can you? I'm still a human being, and I'm alive. Eat your sister's seafood, master?" "Huh. Huh. Huh. I don't eat seafood." Kxian turned around and glanced at Han Qian, then continued as if nothing had happened. "Sister-in-law, their seafood is quite good. It comes in a complete set, but it's a bit expensive. For 7 or 8 of us, it costs more than 1,000. Nuan patted his chest and said boldly. "Money, money, money, sister-in-law has money, but sister-in-law has nothing but money." Han Qian nodded in agreement. "You don't have a brain yet." "Ha." Nuan sneered, narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Kexen, can you drive?" Kxian nodded confusedly. "Yes, sister-in-law, I will drive when you are tired." "What are you driving?" "My sister-in-law will take you to buy a car. Your brother's money is with me. Let's go." "Sister-in-law, you really know how to joke." Nuan stopped talking, opened Dayahang and went straight to the Chang'an For's store in the county. Under the eyes of Kxian's ignorant eyes and the gaze of Han Qian, who was squatting at the door and covering his head helplessly, when Nuan walked in the For's store with his head held high, carrying his bag, completely ignoring the introduction of the sales consultant. "Pay the money, sign, pick up the car, pay compulsory insurance, hang the temporary license plate, and drive away." It took a total of 46 minutes, and the car was registered in the name of Changxiang Group, and the insurance was through the company. 70,000. When Kexen took the car key, she was still confused. When Nuan looked at Han Qian squatting at the door and said softly, "Do I still need to consider you?" Han Qian closed his eyes and sighed, stood up, patted Kexen's broad shoulder, and sighed. "It's my money, just drive without worry, let's go, let's go." When Han Qian was about to get into Kexen's car, Wen grabbed his ears and carried him away. After getting in the car, Wen said softly, "You said that the money was returned to me, so what I do with it is my own business. And since we are divorced, you have no right to interfere with my affairs. Then if I go to Kexen's car, he will definitely be nervous. I'm used to being nervous. Shut up now. I'll call Shisai and ask her to drive the company's pickup truck when she comes. That pickup truck is imported and is under the company's name. Dad will take it and drive it. Pull it. Things are also convenient. If our mother feels unwell, she can drive directly to the hospital. Well, you can get out of the car, but Xin is driving too slowly. Han Qian was pushed out of the car by Wen Nuan. Standing under the car, Han Qian was trembling with anger. If he hadn't been reluctant, I would have beaten you up in the car. How can you spend so much money? I spent more than 4,000 yuan to buy a few sets of clothes. Han Qian can accept it. I bought 3 leather bags for 20,000 yuan for several younger siblings. Han Qian can still accept it. You suddenly bought Kexin a car? 70,000. If Han Qian spent money to buy this car, he wouldn't feel bad at all, but the money should be returned to Nuan, and then she spends 100,000 Han Qian's brothers and sisters. Is this money considered repayable? In fact, Wen Nuan really didn't think so much. The 70,000 yuan in Han Qian's eyes was not much different from 700 yuan in her eyes. When they arrived at the hotel, Kexin was still in a confused state. When Nuan spoke, he nodded and was very obedient. Han Qian looked upset. When he was about to get up, the box door was pushed open and his little brother, whom he hadn't seen for 3 years, arrived. Firework head, bow legs, big nose. Monkey guo, I thought you forgot about us. Han Qian grinned, feeling very happy in his heart. He hadn't made a single phone call in more than 3 years, but now that he had met, he didn't feel unfamiliar at all. Han Qian hugged the brother gently, turned around and introduced him to Wen Nuan. Road. Dalong, whose real name is Zhang Kixin, is my younger brother. We are the second oldest. We have been together for 20 years. This time the warmth was not cold, he stood up and smiled. My name is Wen Nuan. I am the woman who has imprisoned your eldest brother for 3 years. You can call me Sister Wen or my sister-in-law. Dalong pushed Han Qian away, walked to Nuan and sat down beside him, laughing softly. Sister-in-law, you have a hard life. Why did you meet my elder brother? This guy has a brain problem and a severe misophobia. He has suffered for you for the past 3 years. If he dares to recruit you, just tell me, don't he doesn't have the ability, so I can still beat him, but if I can't beat him, there's still Kexin. Wen Nuan nodded with a smile and said softly. Did Dalong buy a car? As soon as these words came out, Han Qian felt his scalp numb, turned his head and glared at Wen Nuan. Dalong chuckled. I bought a 2006 Bora. I knew I would be drinking today and didn't drive. Oh. Nuan was slightly disappointed. Han Qian breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 2 was updated in the afternoon, and there was a small problem. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 412. Han Qian has 4 children in total, and most of them except Kxian have girlfriends. Among them, Xiao He has been married for 2 years, Dalong is in the love stage, and Tu Han is engaged. Han Qian has never met the 3 girls. They had only heard of a big brother like Han Qian, and this was the first time they met him today. After a brief introduction, the brothers were very calm after seeing Wen. No one was surprised by Wen's good looks. Maybe it's because birds of a feather flock together. Han Qian's findings were not lewd, but the 3 younger siblings felt a little more confident after Wen's inspection. Insufficient. There is no intercourse between men and women. The men have to drink and gather together, while the women sit across from each other. The men were talking loudly, laughing and joking. The voice from the woman's side was very low. Nuan handed the 3 bags to her siblings and laughed softly. When we first met, my sister-in-law didn't know what you liked, so I bought a few bags. After shopping around in the mall here, I only found these few that I liked. What do you like? I'll have someone give you one in a few days. Send it over. When Nuan has worked very hard to get closer to his siblings. Several of them have very good personalities, but Nuan Wen still showed a hint of wealth and strength in his words. Xiao He's wife took the bag without any intention. Lung smiled. Sister-in-law, how do you take care of your skin? It's so tender. My skin is very dry. I've tried many ways. When Nuan asked softly. Do you want to cook every day? Xiao He's wife shook her head and said with a naive smile. No, my husband does the cooking. I heard that the brothers seem to be good in the kitchen. Yang Yang, does Tu Han cook? Yang Yang, who was relatively introverted, nodded, and Nuan said softly when he saw this. That may be a problem with the cosmetics. Well, I use the ones from the Lancome counter. How many products can I recommend to you? I will have someone send them over in a few days. If you feel good after using them, use them. After saying this, when Nuan discovered that Tu Han's fiancé and De Long's girlfriend had no reaction. Xiao He's wife's expression became gloomy and she lowered her head. Seeing this, Nuan slapped his forehead and said softly. I almost forgot. The company's department store has this counter. When you go to the city, give me a call. I will ask them to pack a few sets for you. You can also calculate how long they will last. Then let them mail it to you regularly. It's good, it's your own, it doesn't cost anything. Several younger siblings were a little confused. They found that this sister-in-law seemed a bit powerful, but very easygoing. The men on the other side were not so happy. Han Qian had already heard from Kxian and the old man that Xiao He had encountered some troubles. When Han Qian asked, the boy still insisted that it was okay. Da Long on the side couldn't bear it. Just tell Han Qian. 2 years ago, Xiao He met a friend named Li Xian. His family was in pretty good condition. He helped Xiao He at first, but then the troubles continued. It was as if the favor was not clean anymore. If you have nothing to do, ask Xiao He to drink some wine, go out to have fun, sing, and find a girl. You can get around 1,000 for one night. This money was not spent by Xiao He alone, but by 2 people. Gradually, Xiao He began to overdraw his credit card, take out online loans, spend in advance, and use loans to finance loans. He owed more and more, and he had been anticipating the credit card for a long time. After hearing this, Han Qian turned to look at Xiao He, frowned and smiled. How much did it cost? Xiao He made a sign of 10 under the table. 100,000. In other words, 100,000 is owed. Seeing this, Han Qian smiled and comforted softly. It's not much. It's not bad to make another friend. Wouldn't it be nice to pay this little money? Isn't your Xian's condition pretty good? Da Long on the side continued. Friend? Brother Monkey, please stop making trouble. I just want to find someone to play with, and I don't want to spend more money. Now I've met Xia He, a fool who wants to save face and suffer. Now that the money is gone, I have given him his number blacken. Han Qian smiled again and did not dwell on the matter. The brothers drank until about 11 o'clock in the evening. When they walked out of the hotel, Han Qian suddenly spoke. Do you want to work in the city? The brothers all drank too much and didn't take Han Qian's words seriously. Han Qian didn't force it. Everyone had their own ideas. After getting in the car, Han Qian covered his head and sighed. Nuan handed Han Qian a bottle of water and said softly. Something happened at Xiao He's family. Han Qian raised his head and said doubtfully. You know it too? Well, Tutu told me something. You people are really destructive. Just because you have a big teeth, you give people the nickname Rabbit. I don't know how much Zaya he owes. I gave him 10,000. Compassion overflowing. Han Qian's words fell, and his face was forcibly turned away by Wen Wen. Seeing Wen Wen's serious expression, Han Qian tilted his head in confusion. Wen Wen's palms turned into pliers, pinched Han Qian's face, and said seriously, "It's not that I'm overflowing with sympathy. I'm warm and never have sympathy, and I will never pity a poor person. In our country, it's not easy to get rich. But people with sound limbs and not fools want to be fed and clothed. It's easy to be warm, and no one's success comes from laziness. So I never sympathize with others, including you. I know that you almost went to jail because of our mother's medical expenses, but I don't sympathize with you at all." "Okay, I know. Wen Nuan increased his intensity and said angrily, "You don't know. I didn't buy Kexen a car out of sympathy because he helped me. It was Kexen who protected me when I was drunk like a fool. I also like Kexen's brother very much, so I bought it for him. Che, giving money to Xiao He is all because of you. He is your brother, so I gave him money to solve the problem. I have no sympathy." Trojan horse. Han Qian pouted and kissed the air. He drank too much again. Wen Nuan was too lazy to explain so much to Han Qian. When he drove home, his mother-in-law had called several times and specifically told them not to live outside. The hotels in the county are not as clean as those in the city. When they arrived at the door of the house, Han Qian got out of the car and vomited. Wen Nuan stood in the distance and looked at Han Qian indifferently, holding her arms in her arms. She didn't want to help, and she wouldn't let her mother-in-law who rushed out to help her. She gritted her teeth and said angrily, "Mom, please leave him alone. He always says he won't drink next time, and he drinks so much every time. His body is bruised and he goes downstairs to drink with Cheng Jin in the middle of the night while I'm asleep." Qian's mother sighed softly. The old man walked over and patted her son on the back. He helped her into the yard. Nuan went to take a bath angrily. There was hot water when the floor was heated at home. Qian's mother closed the door. Whispered softly, "Cheng Jin? This name is very familiar. I seem to have heard it somewhere." When Wen Nuan took a shower and returned to the house, Han Qian was already asleep under the quilt. Wen Nuan opened the quilt and touched Han Qian's back with his hand. He sighed after finding that his clothes had been taken off. The wounds on his body were probably already gone. Was seen by father-in-law. After driving for a day, Wen Nuan was a little tired, so he got into his bed and quickly fell asleep. Late at night, Wen Nuan suddenly felt a heavy weight on her shoulders. She opened her eyes drowsily and found Han Qian pressing her shoulders with his hands and looking at her with his upper body naked. Wen Nuan panicked for a moment. She was worried that Han Qian would do something out of court after being drunk. Matter. She was not ready yet. Wen Nuan was panicked but also very calm. She couldn't make any noise at this time. If she woke up her father-in-law and mother-in-law, there was no way to explain. Wen Nuan pushed Han Qian's chest with his hands and said tremblingly, What are you going to do?" "Han Qian, calm down, I'm not ready yet." Han Qian looked at Wen Nuan. His hands suddenly gave up and half of his body was pressed against Wen Wen. Wen Wen was immediately frightened and did not dare to move, for fear of irritating this guy. When Wen Wen was extremely nervous, blushing, and heart-beating, Han Qian's sleepy voice sounded in her ears. "Daughter-in-law." "Huh." Wen Nuan's voice was trembling. Han Qian had never called her like this before. Was he trying to? Wen Nuan didn't dare to think about it. She felt that her heartbeat was about to jump out of her throat, and she didn't dare to push Han Qian. "Open. I'm thirsty and want to drink water." Wen Nuan breathed a sigh of relief, then took a sharp breath and pushed Han Qian away, and went down to get the mineral water. When Han Qian was naked and smacking his lips with his eyes closed, Wen really wanted to smash this guy to death with a bottle. Drink the water. Just drink water. Why are you pressing me down in the middle of the night? She thought so in her heart, but she still got on the Kong, put her arms around Han Qian's neck and lifted him up, opened the water bottle and put it to Han Qian's mouth. Han Qian opened his eyes drowsily, drank most of the bottle in one breath, then pushed away the warmth and muttered. Do not touch me. Nuan's face turned green with anger. Just when she was about to pour the remaining half bottle of water on Han Qian's head, the drunk guy spoke. I'm married.